If you had only one meal left for the day, would you share it with a homeless stranger? And if you knew that tiny act of kindness could cost you your job, your income, and your faith in justice, would you still do it? This is a true story, one that sounds more like a movie, about a waitress named Rose, a single mother who kept smiling even as unpaid bills piled up at home. One late night, she made a choice she would remember for the rest of her life. One plate of food, one wandering man, and one hidden camera that shook social media overnight. No one could have guessed that the man labeled a bum was actually Elon Musk conducting a quiet experiment on human kindness. This story will bring tears to your eyes, but more importantly, it may change the way you think about kindness, especially when no one's watching. If you love heartfelt and inspiring stories like this, hit the subscribe button so we can meet again on the next journey into humanity. Now let's uncover what happened to Rose, the woman who chose kindness over comfort and changed her life forever. Part 1. A night like any other. But fate was starting to change under the dim, tired fluorescent lights of the small diner named Andrew's Diner. Rose, a single mother in her 30s, quietly moved from table to table, her legs numb after over 10 hours of serving. The smell of old coffee, the clinking of forks and knives, and the sound of orders being shouted, all blended into the distant hum of the radio music. This had been the soundtrack of her daily life for years. She didn't complain. Having grown used to working herself to exhaustion, Rose had learned to smile even when customers complained for no reason, and to be patient even when her body screamed to collapse. She knew that at home, 2 kids were waiting for her, and the humble meal and peaceful sleep they would get only existed if their mother was strong. It was a quiet Tuesday evening. A few customers were scattered around, enjoying a late-night meal. Then a man walked in. He wore multiple layers of old clothes, his beard unkempt, his eyes sunken from exhaustion and sleeplessness. Some customers looked at him warily, and the owner, Andrew, muttered, "Another homeless person taking up space." Rose didn't say anything. She quietly handed him a glass of water, as polite as she would to any other customer. With the eyes of experience, she noticed the tiredness hidden behind his worn-out coat. In that brief moment, she saw a reflection of herself from years ago, also lost in the city, once hoping for someone to simply ask, "Are you okay?" The man didn't order anything. He just sat in silence, his eyes occasionally glancing at the plates of food being served to other customers. Rose noticed this, and she knew not everyone stays silent out of politeness. Sometimes it's because they simply don't have the money to order. As closing time approached, she walked toward the kitchen and scooped up a portion of leftover roast beef, the kind that would have been thrown away like every other night, and placed it on a plate with mashed potatoes, vegetables, and a whole piece of bread. If I get fired for this, she thought to herself, at least I'll still have my conscience. She placed the plate of food in front of the man and smiled. "It's just leftovers, but it's still warm. I hope you don't mind." And that small act, seemingly insignificant in a quiet corner of the diner, silently began a series of events that would completely change Rose's life. Part 2. A handwritten thank you and an unexpected night. Rose's footsteps echoed steadily across the small kitchen floor as she quietly put away her things and slipped on her worn-out shoes to head home. Her heart was still pounding from the earlier conversation with Andrew, the diner's owner, a man she had never once seen gentle. The moment he found out she had served food to a homeless man without asking permission, he exploded in anger and dragged her into the back room for a talk. The door closed behind them. Andrew's eyes turned sharp, and his voice sliced through the air like a knife. "You think this is a charity? Who's paying for that plate of food?" Rose clenched her fingers into the hem of her apron. "It was going to be thrown out. You know that. But the guy didn't pay. You acted on your own. You crossed the line. If I have to get fired for feeding someone who's hungry, I accept that. Good, then you're fired." The verdict was delivered coldly, like a sentence handed down from a judge. Rose didn't argue, she didn't cry. She simply bowed her head, folded up her apron, grabbed her bag, and walked out of the door she had passed through every day for 6 years. But what made Rose's heart tremble wasn't the job she'd lost. It was what she found when she returned to the table where the man had been sitting. The table was now empty. On the plate were just a few leftover crumbs of bread. The water glass remained untouched, but in the center of the table, under a plain white napkin, sat a $20 bill and a small handwritten note. "Thank you." The handwriting wasn't messy like most. It was neat, deliberate, rounded, as if written by someone who had spent years holding a pen. A teacher, perhaps, or someone important. Rose stood still. Something about it felt strange. The contrast between the man's rugged appearance and that elegant script sparked a quiet instinct inside her. This man might not have been just a homeless person. On her way home, Rose held the napkin tightly in her hand, as if it were some mysterious sign from the universe. What she didn't know was that, just across the street, hidden in the shadows of a luxury car, the man, now without his fake beard, was watching her quietly, his deep eyes reflecting something impossible to read. And from that moment on, Rose, the quiet waitress, unnoticed in a world of indifferent glances, was about to step into a life she never could have imagined. Part 3. A sleepless night, a buzzing phone, and a message no one expected. That night, Rose barely slept. She lay curled up on the worn-out sofa while her two young children, Mateo and Lucia, had drifted off after a simple dinner, lovingly brought over by their kind neighbor, a few empanadas and a warm glass of milk. But Rose remained wide awake, her eyes fixed on the stained ceiling, her mind looping one scene again and again. The man's eyes, the word "thank you" scrawled across the napkin, and the sharp, bitter voice of Andrew echoing in her ears. She kept whispering to herself that tomorrow would be different. Tomorrow she'd find a new job. Tomorrow she'd be stronger. But the ache inside her was undeniable. A gaping hollow made of injustice, rent money she couldn't pay, and the sting of being tossed out of the job she had clung to for 6 years. All for one act of kindness. It was nearly 1 a.m. The street outside had quieted, with only the occasional car passing through the city's night haze. Suddenly, Rose's old phone buzzed on the coffee table. A message from an unknown number, no name attached. "Ms. Rose, I believe people like you deserve more than what you've been given. I'd like to talk. No pressure, just a conversation. EM." She froze. EM? Her eyes flicked toward the napkin, still carefully tucked inside her old notebook beside her. Her pulse quickened. Could it be? Her heart pounded. Could the man from that night really be Elon Musk? The thought made her laugh out loud, quietly, nervously. The richest man in the world? Disguised as a homeless person? Walking into a tiny, fading diner just to test someone's compassion? Absurd. Impossible. But then again, the handwriting. The way he looked at her. And now, this message? She sat up, hands trembling, and typed, "I don't know what this is about, but if this really is you, I'm willing to listen." Moments later, a reply came through. 9 a.m. tomorrow, Green Bean Cafe, corner of 5th Street. I'll be waiting. Rose stared at the screen, feeling a chill run down her spine. She reached out and gently brushed Lucia's cheek as the little girl slept peacefully beside her. She didn't know what tomorrow morning at that cafe would bring. A chance, a prank, a test, or something entirely unexpected? But deep in her heart, something told her. Tomorrow would not be an ordinary day. Part 4. An unexpected meeting and a truth slowly revealed. The next morning, Rose woke up earlier than usual. Not because of the alarm clock, but because her thoughts were stirring, restless and tangled. A soft ray of sunlight filtered through the worn-out curtains, casting a gentle glow on Lucia's sleeping face. She gently brushed her daughter's hair aside and quietly got up to get ready. She pulled out her off-white blouse and pleated skirt, clothes she had reserved for job interviews. Though today wasn't a grand occasion, and though she had no idea what to expect, she wanted to look presentable. Whether she was truly meeting Elon Musk or just walking into an elaborate joke played by fate, she intended to face it with dignity. Green Bean Cafe sat modestly on the corner of 5th Street, small, cozy, filled with the warm aroma of freshly roasted coffee and baked goods. Rose chose a seat by the window where sunlight poured in gently. She ordered a black coffee, partly to stay alert, partly to calm her nerves. At exactly 9 o'clock a.m., a sharply dressed woman with a purposeful stride walked in. She made her way directly to Rose's table and smiled warmly. "Ms. Rose, I'm Tanya Williams, Mr. Elon Musk's personal assistant. Thank you for coming." Rose nodded softly, her heart beating louder with every second. Tanya placed a slim tablet gently on the table and spoke with calm clarity. Mr. Musk reviewed the security footage from the diner. He was deeply moved, not just by your kindness, but by the respect you showed to someone most people would have ignored. Rose felt her face flush. She stammered, I just thought, if food's about to be thrown away and someone in front of you is hungry, then doing the right thing seemed obvious." Tanya smiled, her eyes warm and sincere. "And that right thing is exactly why Mr. Musk wants to meet you in person. Not to say thank you, but to offer you something much more." She then reached into her bag and discreetly handed Rose an envelope. "Regardless of whether you choose to meet with him or not, Mr. Musk wanted you to have this as an apology for everything you've had to endure." Rose opened the envelope with trembling hands. Inside was cash, more than she'd ever held in her life. Tucked alongside was a sleek business card, embossed with just 2 words, Elon Musk. No grand speech, no hidden message, just an opportunity. But behind that opportunity was an entire world waiting to open up. Part 5. The fateful meeting. The next morning, at exactly 9 o'clock a.m., a sleek black Tesla pulled up quietly in front of the old apartment complex where Rose lived. She looked down from her 3rd-floor balcony, heart pounding. Lucia came running from the kitchen, holding the piece of toast her mom had hastily made. "Mom, don't forget to smile, like you always tell me when I go to school," Lucia said, her eyes sparkling. Rose bent down and hugged her tightly. She kissed her daughter on the forehead and whispered, "Be good for Ms. Rodriguez, okay? And if anyone asks, just say I went for a job interview." A professionally dressed driver stepped out and opened the car door. "Ms. Rose, I'm Carlos. I'll be taking you to Tesla's main office today." The car glided smoothly through familiar streets, gradually moving toward the upscale business district. Rose sat quietly, her hands clutching the worn strap of her shoulder bag. She had never been anywhere this fancy before. Excitement and fear swirled inside her. What if they reject me just because I'm a nobody waitress? She wondered. When the car stopped in front of the sleek glass building marked Tesla headquarters, Rose almost forgot to breathe. She stepped into the main lobby. It was spacious, modern, yet somehow not cold. A receptionist smiled at her. "Good morning, Ms. Rose. Mr. Musk is expecting you upstairs." The elevator doors opened to a room with a panoramic view of the city. Sunlight poured in gently. Standing by the window was Elon Musk. He turned with a soft smile. "You must be Rose. I've been looking forward to meeting you." Rose stood frozen, not because of his fame, but because of the warmth and sincerity in his eyes. There was no distance, no barrier. "Thank you, sir, for inviting me," she said quietly, her voice trembling. Elon gestured toward a gray linen sofa. They began talking. Not about money, not about fame, but about kindness and the value it holds in a world that's slowly forgetting how to be gentle. "You didn't know who I was, and yet you helped me," Elon said. "Didn't need to," Rose replied. "If someone's hungry, they should eat. That's it." Elon paused, then smiled. "You didn't just help me. You reminded me that no matter how far the world advances, compassion is what makes us truly human." The conversation ended with an unexpected offer. "I'd like to invite you to partner with Tesla on a social responsibility initiative, not because of the video, but because you're real." And so Rose, a single mom once fired for giving away a meal, now sat at the heart of a global company where her voice was heard and her humanity honored. Part 6. The unbelievable offer. That afternoon, as Rose returned home, she still couldn't believe what had just happened. What she thought would be a simple thank you meeting had turned into a life-changing turning point. Elon Musk hadn't just offered her a role in Tesla's social responsibility initiative. He presented her with a concrete opportunity to lead a new food program for employees and the community. It was a pilot project called Tesla Cares, inspired directly by Rose's own story. We need someone who truly understands the value of a simple meal, not from theory, but from life, Elon had said, placing the job proposal in front of her. Rose sat speechless. The starting salary was 3 times what she'd made at the diner. It came with housing assistance, educational support for her children, and full healthcare benefits. But more than the material things, what moved her most was the handwritten note at the end of the proposal. Rose, your kindness woke something in me. Let's do something better for this world. Together. That evening, she sat at the small dinner table with Lucia and Mrs. Rodriguez. She shared everything, from the meeting to the unexpected offer. Lucia's eyes widened, her small hand clutching her mom's. So, you're really gonna work with Mr. Elon? Rose smiled softly and nodded, but inside joy was still mixed with anxiety. What if I'm not good enough? She whispered. Mrs. Rodriguez, the elderly neighbor who had witnessed every step of her struggle, gently placed a hand on Rose's shoulder. You don't need to be the best, mija. You just need to be yourself. That's more than enough. Because people with a genuine heart, they're the most valuable asset anywhere. That night, Rose didn't sleep. She sat at the kitchen table and wrote out her story, line by line, tracing a journey filled with tears, but also bursting with hope. She knew this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. And the next morning, when the familiar black Tesla pulled up once again, Rose no longer trembled. She was no longer just the waitress fired for an act of kindness. She was Rose, the woman chosen not for a viral video, but for a brave heart that chose to do the right thing when no one was watching. Part 7, a first day, and a beginning no one expected. On her first morning at Tesla headquarters, Rose wore a crisp white blouse and a soft blue skirt, an outfit Mrs. Rodriguez had carefully ironed the night before. Lucia held her mother's hand, looking up at the Tesla parked outside, and whispered, Mom, are you going to see Mr. Elon today? Rose smiled and bent down to kiss her daughter's forehead. I'll try my best today so you can be proud of me, okay? When she arrived at the Tesla office, Rose walked through the vast glass lobby with a nervous heart. Everything felt new. From the air, the people, even the way they looked at her. Not with pity, but with respect. It made her shy, yet deeply seen. Tanya, Elon's assistant, led Rose on a tour of her new workspace. Her office was located within the Tesla Cares division, which was preparing to launch a new program offering free meals to struggling employees and the local community. This is Elon's passion project, Tanya said. But he believes only someone who's truly been through hardship can lead it with the right kind of sensitivity. Throughout the morning, Rose met with the head chefs, the meal design team, and the communications department. People looked at her with curiosity, but when Rose shared her story in her humble, heartfelt tone, the entire room went quiet. I'm not here to be an inspiration. I've just been hungry, and I've been helped. So I know that sometimes a meal is the only thing that pulls someone back from despair. One of the engineers, a man who seemed stoic and reserved, wiped his eyes and softly said, You remind me of my mom. She used to pack leftover rice and hand it out to the homeless. No one ever noticed. That afternoon, Elon stopped by, holding 2 cups of coffee. Welcome to the Tesla family, he said with a smile. Rose looked at the coffee and suddenly remembered the days she brewed cheap coffee at the diner, smiling to hide her fatigue. She smiled back. This is the first time I've had coffee that didn't come from an old drip machine. Thank you for believing in me. Elon replied gently, I didn't believe in you because of that video. I believed in you because even when no one was watching, you chose to do the right thing. And that's something no university can teach. Rose turned to the wide window. The sky outside was a clear, endless blue. But what she felt inside was even deeper. A kind of peace she had never known. A new life was beginning. Not because of money, but because of a single meal. And a heart that never stopped beating for others. Some choices in life seem small, like giving away a leftover plate of food, but they can open up entire new horizons. Rose lost her job. She cried in her old car. She believed she was just another poor waitress, alone in a city that didn't care. But that so-called foolish act sparked the impossible. She was personally offered a position by Elon Musk as director of charitable programs at Tesla. Why? Because when no one was watching, Rose still chose kindness. And in a world growing increasingly cynical, it's quiet kindness like hers that becomes the rarest and most valuable currency of all. From a struggling single mom, she became a symbol of hope and humanity. Her former workplace, Andrew's Diner, has since been renamed Community Kitchen, now serving free meals every day to the homeless. And her old boss, Andrew, the one who fired her, he returned, not to manage, but to be welcomed in, for a warm meal, just like everyone else. Sometimes, what you lose is temporary, but what you give from the heart, that becomes eternal. If you've ever believed that kindness makes you weak, maybe you need to hear this story again. Please like, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to this channel so you won't miss more true stories that speak to the soul. Because every good person deserves to be heard.